Let's start our pollinator garden tour off in a big favorite with some of our local pollinators. Now these are honeybees, they're not native, but they're kept by the Appalachian Beekeepers Association. So they're on site and they really appreciate flowers like this and a lot of variety that we have in our garden. So you can see we have many layers. We've got nice low stuff growing, a little bit taller, and then further back. And this is great for design purposes to go against the building, but then it's also great for pollinators. We've got a wide variety of flowering plants that have nectar and pollen sources for bees and butterflies, like this fuchsia sage. This one's just beautiful. And then we also have a lot of larval host plants, like the kunti. We've got porterweed, which is coming up here. So we'll keep going. Now you might think that because we are extension agents and master gardeners, we know the answers to everything, right? And that we are always up to date on everything. But the invasive species list, is always growing and it's always changing. We try to keep up with it. But a couple years ago, we planted this cassia tree, and unfortunately now it is on that invasive species list. And also, from a design perspective too, it's getting a little too big for the space. So it's certainly not the right plant for the right place anymore. So as this public shutdown happens, we'll try to take out this tree, because in our demonstration gardens, we don't like to recommend anything that is invasive or has a possibility to be invasive. So in our pollinator garden, we'll see a lot of native plants, but also a lot of not native plants too, because there are some great pollinator plants that aren't necessarily native. Oh, actually, as this butterfly can attest, pentas are one of those that aren't native. They used to be just grown as annuals, but these ones have perennialized just fine. And you can see the pollinators really appreciate these because they've got a lot of flowers right close to each other. So they don't have to expend a lot of energy going from flower to flower. We also have down here some strawberries. Oh, there's our butterfly again. And over here some blueberries. A big plum, a big native plum back here. I don't see any fruit on it yet, but it's probably still making them. Some cannas. And then here's an important part of our gardening for wildlife. So this may just look like a bird bath with a bunch of rocks in it, but really what it's doing is helping bees and other pollinators not drown, other insects basically. So they can come here and they can puddle, so they can stand on the rocks and they can get the water that they need, because all living things need water. So we've got here's a cool design feature here. We have unsightly air conditioners, and rather than just see those all day, we've got some nice plants growing up on them. And as the summer progresses, we'll see that these plants come all over them, especially this passion vine. And the passion vine is a larval host plant for several species. One of them is a Gulf fritillary butterfly. Here's the Dutchman's pipe. It just flowered. Here, it's an interesting little flower up there. That's the larval host plant of the pipevine swallowtail, I believe. And then among our pollinators, we don't want to forget our hummingbirds. And hummingbirds really love tubular long flowers because they have those long beaks. So this is a great native plant. It's a native honeysuckle. And they can get in there, and they're especially adapted for these long tubular flowers. A lot of salvias are great for hummingbirds as well. Here's another salvia that's just popping up in our little bridge. And here's one you might not think of for a butterfly garden. It's citrus. This is a Meyer lemon. And it's pretty big, but the bees certainly enjoy the flowers. But we'll see if we can find any. I haven't seen any yet this season. When you start looking at them, they've got these chewing, biting marks on the leaves. Now, if you're a citrus grower, you might not want that. But because we're trying to support wildlife and grow caterpillars, we like to see that. That is the evidence that there are some caterpillars on here. And that's the giant swallowtail caterpillar. They look like bird poop, and that is a defense mechanism. Oh, here we go on our pentas. Pentas are so great because you can see a really wide diversity of bees. And you can tell these guys got bit back by the cold. So we'll come through here and we'll cut them back a little bit. But they will just keep on growing. They come in a variety of colors, reds to whites to pinks. You kind of grow them all here. Here is some more salvias. And the garden just keeps going on and on. Now down here, we have something that you might worry about, this Nandina. But this Nandina back here is actually sterile. So, you know, even if you like Nandina and you know it's on the invasive list, you can still grow it responsibly. You just have to make sure it's a sterile variety. And here's our beautiful native Rudbeckias. All right. Thanks for coming on this tour.